When people have been living with pain for a long time, one of the things we see is that there's often a level of fear associated with pain. Now that's completely normal because pain as an unpleasant experience is designed to make us avoid it, to make us move differently and avoid putting ourselves in situations that are potentially dangerous, for example. And although this is a helpful mechanism that we have within our bodies, actually when we apply this to pain, over time it can be associated with the development and maintenance of persistent pain. One of the best models for understanding this link is something called the fear-avoidance model. So just to talk through this, we'll give you an example of bending and injuring your back, for example, as how we might use this. So if someone was to injure themselves by bending and picking something up, they might have a pain experience. Now typically there's two ways that we might respond to that pain experience and that injury, either by confronting the pain and moving with it, or avoiding the pain. So if we look at this, the latter to start with, often if we have an injury, there might be some thoughts associated with that injury. So I might have damaged my back in some way, and that pain as a result of that is a sign of damage. Now we call this catastrophizing or thinking the worst, and this can be influenced by a number of things. It might be that someone is a natural worrier, or it may be that they've been told by somebody that they've damaged themselves in some way, or they may have had a scan that has alluded to something inside the body. As a result, this can often lead to a level of pain-related fear. So fear that pain is a sign of damage. As a result, we often see people avoiding certain movements. So if someone had hurt their back, they might avoid bending because of pain associated with bending and a fear that therefore when they experience pain while bending, that might indicate some level of damage. As a result of this, over time, that can lead to decondition of the muscles getting weaker, joints getting stiffer. And if we do that movement less over time, it may be that we become restricted a bit functionally. If we start doing less and we have functional restrictions, that in turn can lead to lower mood, reduction of engagement with valued life activities. In turn, that can then feed back into a pain experience and the cycle continues. On the other side of that, if we have someone who injures their back but has a low level of fear associated with that injury, it may be that they're more confident in their ability to continue moving with a little bit of pain. And that might be influenced by their natural tendency to not worry, or it may be that they've received some reassurance from a friend or a healthcare professional that actually their back is safe and that it is okay, and that pain is not a good sign of damage, and it's the body's alarm system. If you want more information about the pain and the mechanisms underlying pain, then refer to one of our other videos in this series. As a result of an ability to relax and be with pain and confront pain, often the opposite effect happens where we regain function more quickly and recover to be able to live a more valued life more quickly as well. Now, this might be well and true, but it can be quite uncomfortable and quite a scary prospect, especially if you've been living with pain for a long time. The first step is understanding how the pain system works. The second step is to start small and build up slowly. So what we wouldn't suggest is if you're afraid of bending to suddenly throw yourself into a bent position 10 times a day. It may be that we start small and build up. In order to show their body, demonstrate to yourself and your body that it is safe to move with pain. And over time, this can lead to a reduction in fear and put you back in control of your pain. One of the main approaches we use is something called a graded exposure approach. So over time living with pain, people often tell us that their activity levels are fluctuating. So they may have a good day, and on a good day they go around doing lots of the things that are important to them. And in turn that might flare up their pain, and then they have a bad day or a bad few days or a bad week where their activity levels are reduced. Over that time, if their pain then drops, they're able to do a bit more again. However, unfortunately, what we often see is what we call a boom and bust cycle. So people doing lots of activity, having a flare up of their pain, and then not being able to do as much activity. One of the things that we would advocate is a graded exposure approach. This involves starting with a consistent level of activity, and that might be less than you think you should be able to do, but our nervous systems respond really well to consistent levels of activity. So starting small and doing something on a daily basis. Then what we would suggest is slowly, over time, building this up. And the key thing here is that we build it up based on a plan, not based on how bad the pain is on any particular day. So even on days when the pain might be worse, continuing to do a little bit of movement and challenging some of that fear or some of that pain associated with the movement. So in terms of how you might do this, the first thing to think about is there anything that you're currently avoiding because of pain? And it may be that there are really obvious things that you say, I am really avoidant of bending, or I don't go into the low cupboards, or I don't go into the high cupboards at home because I don't want to feel pain and I know that it might flare my pain up. So what would be the first step in reducing fear associated with certain movements? Well, the first thing is identifying that there are things that perhaps you are avoiding in everyday life, whether that be bending over or whether that be I get the lift rather than taking the stairs, for example. You might like to start some exercises to help you start to condition your body to be able to do those things more easily. But a really good place to start is to make a plan. Maybe discuss it with someone else, a friend, a family member, or get help from a healthcare professional if you like. And over time, through a graded exposure approach, you can reduce the fear associated with pain and increase your activity levels.